This is Sports Overdrive with Taylor Jones.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Sports Overdrive. It is June the 13th, 2014 and my name is Taylor Jones. And since the show's inception in May, we've had a lot of really cool guests on the show. We have writers, television hosts, whoever we can find. But this one's got to be top 2 of the best guests that we've had so far on the show. It's head coach of the Women's College World Series champions from 2012, the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's Coach Pat Murphy. He's going to be joining the show in just a few moments. But before we get to him, a brief synopsis of what Alabama has been able to accomplish this season. They finished the season 53-13, not bad. 19-5 in SEC play. Had 2 players make the first-team All-America team in Jackie Traina and Haley McClaney. And they made another Women's College World Series run, but ultimately fell to the Florida Gators. So not bad of a season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And joining the show right now is head coach of that Crimson Tide team, Coach Patrick Murphy. And he joins us now on Sports Overdrive. Joining Sports Overdrive now is the head coach of the 2012 Women's College World Series champion Alabama Crimson Tide softball team. It's Coach Patrick Murphy. And Coach Murphy, it's an honor to have you on the show today. How are you this afternoon?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
The 2014 season was definitely a season to write home about. 19-5 in a very difficult Southeastern Conference and also 53-13 overall. So outside of the Women's College World Series, what game or games, in your opinion, do you feel were the most memorable this season?
When we went out to the University of Arizona the second weekend of the season, we went out there with a purpose to play an away game on an opponent's home field. You know, sometimes when you play in these big tournaments, it's a neutral site. And we didn't want the neutral site at like a city park or a big 12-field complex. We wanted to play on somebody else's home field and really feel that energy from the opposing crowd. And although we lost, it really gave everybody a sense of this is the things we need to work on. We need to do better at scoring the runners in scoring position. We need to do better with our walks, our freebies on defense. And I think when we came back, we beat Florida State at home. And I'd include that game, too, in one of the best ones. We beat them 1-0. They had the player of the year on the mound, and she was a terrific pitcher. And Jackie Traina threw a shutout. It was just one of the best games all year at home, and, it was in front of our crowd. I think another series was probably when we swept LSU at home. You know, we started the SEC 15-0, and that sweep of LSU show, I think it gave everybody a lot of confidence. I don't think a lot of people remember that last year was one of our worst years in terms of SEC play, and we finished 8th. And so to come back and win it and clinch it with 1 weekend to go says a lot about the kids on the team this year. I think they were really driven. I think when we came back in the fall, everybody was ready to go, and I think a lot of people were, including me, were embarrassed by the year before. So it didn't end our way, but it was a great season nonetheless.
Looking at some of the postseason awards, 2 of your players, Jacqueline Traina and Haley McClaney, were named first-team All-American, and Haley having an impressive .451 batting average at the time of the selection with 9 home runs. So how special of a player is Haley to coach, and how much has she improved since she made it to Tuscaloosa as a freshman?
She's one of those kids, and I think it's kind of an overused thing in baseball, but if she was a baseball player, the scouts would say she's a five-tool athlete. You know, she can do it all. She can hit for power. She can hit for average. She can run. She can play defense. And she's got a hell of an arm. You know, and if she was a guy, she'd be making, $8 million a year playing center field for the Red Sox. Fortunately, she's a young lady, and she's playing center field for me. Her and Jackie as we do this or talk, they're both trying out for Team USA. So they both had just really, really good years. Haley, I think the biggest thing with her this year was she was a lot of short game last year. She's a slapper and a triple threat, basically. She can hit, she can slap, and she can drag bunt to get on. And after last year, we sat down and we have exit interviews with everybody on the team, and we go over the team performance, their performance. And one of the things that we had told Haley that, there's opportunities during the year where you're going to be an RBI person. We don't want the little short ground ball to second base or shortstop. We want you to drive the ball and get in those runs. And I think she did that perfectly. Her home runs, I think she had that home run against Oregon, so it gave her 10 on the year, at the World Series. So her power numbers tripled. Her RBIs went up. Her doubles basically stayed the same, but I think the biggest thing with her was she's improved in her sitting in the box and hitting, and it made a difference for us for sure.
Well, now focus on Jackie Traina, who picked up her third first-team All-American honor and her fourth in as many years. SEC Player of the Year, had video game-like numbers in her career with the Tide. So when it came to recruiting her, what tactics did you and your staff use to get her out of Florida? And the other question is I know that many Alabama softball fans know how much of an impact that she's had on the team, but from a coach's perspective, how proud are you of her and what she's able to accomplish with Alabama?
I'm not sure how many people realize this, but, when it came down to her, it was between us, Florida State, and Florida. And as I'm kind of the lone wolf. I'm out of state, farthest away from home. She's really close to her mom. It was her mom and her that lived in Naples. Her dad lives in Boston. And when she came for her unofficial visit, I think she really appreciated the family's atmosphere. All the kids were really friendly to her. They didn't ask about softball. They wanted to know her as a person. And I think that gave her a good indication that we're not a softball factory. It's more about the person than the player. And, we were just lucky that in the end she chose us. But just a great young lady, off the field. She's very fun-loving. She's just a easy-going, very even-keeled kid. That's her. She's a big kid. She's a very good student. She graduated with a 3.4 GPA. She's going to get her master's in social work next year. The people in the social work department on campus loved her. She did an internship with a facility in Tuscaloosa, and all the ladies that worked there, when I'd see them out in the grocery store or wherever, they always made a comment about how much they appreciated having Jackie as an intern this semester. So she could run for mayor of Tuscaloosa and beat Walt Maddox right now. She's that popular. She handled herself with grace her whole career. One of the things I do promise the kids, and I don't promise playing time or position, but I do promise that we will try to go as close to their hometown as possible during their career. So mom, dad, uncles, aunts, cousins can just get in the car and maybe drive a half hour to watch them play. And her and Ryan I. Murray, both from Naples, their trip was last year, and we played in Fort Myers at Florida Gulf Coast, which is the closest Division I that we could get to. And I'm no lie, we pull into the complex about 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. We were playing a doubleheader that night. And as soon as the bus door opened, it was like the damn Beatles got off the bus. 150 to 250 little girls with Sharpies, softballs, hats, helmets, bats.
Wow. And
they were all looking for Jackie. And, that, you and me, it sounds exciting, but for a kid that's had to do it almost every day, every game, her 4-year career. And then when she went out to the bullpen, it was like watching the mother duck and all the little ducklings. I mean, they literally followed her around this complex for 3 straight days. And it was one of the neatest things to see because she took her time with everybody. I had to be the bad guy because, obviously she's got to warm up before a game. So we had to kind of shoo them away for a little bit for her warm-up. But then when she walked back to the dugout, I was a little bit more lenient and let them put a ball in her hand, and she signed every ball. And it was just one of the coolest things. And usually when we go on the road, the opposing team breaks their record for an attendance mark. And that night, Florida Gulf Coast sold out for the first time in their history, and a lot of it had to do with Jackie and Ryan. But she's just been that way with fans throughout her whole career. I mean, when we were in Oklahoma City for the World Series, she was the number one wanted autograph for every fan there, not just kids, but adults, grandparents. I mean, everybody kind of wanted a little piece of Jackie Traina, so they knew it was their senior year. But she handled it really, really well, and I think any Alabama fan or softball fan that's listening to this would appreciate her and what she did for the sport of softball over her career.
Head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide softball team, Patrick Murphy, is on Sports Overdrive this afternoon, and we could go on and on about the way that Haley and Jacqueline have contributed to the team's success this season, but what about some of the other players? Who are some of the other key players that will be returning to the Alabama softball program in 2015?
Well, I think a good surprise, and we were hoping that this would happen, is a kid named Jaden Spencer, who's a junior. She's from my hometown in Waterloo, Iowa. She's a kid that there's a lot of young ladies in high school, when we recruit them, they'll say, can I play basketball still? And my answer has always been, absolutely. We want you to be a well-rounded athlete. We don't want you to get burned out by softball. Play basketball, play soccer. There is a chance of injury, but you can get injured walking across the street too.
Yeah.
So, and we like having them be with different kids, a different coach. There's all kinds of positive things they can get for playing another sport. Jaden was one of those kids. She's from Iowa. Iowa's the only state in the country that plays high school softball and baseball in the summer because their weather is so bad in the spring. So if you're a kid in Iowa and you want to play high school softball, you either have to give up the job, definitely a vacation. You if you're playing either sport, that's about it until like August 2nd, and then you get about a week of your summer vacation. So it takes a lot out of the kid and their families, but that's just the way they've done it. And so she played softball in the summer. She was a 4-time All-State basketball player. She won the state shot put. She ran the 4x1 and the 4x2 relays at the Drake Relays, the high school division. So she was busy her entire high school career and never really, specialized in softball. So I have tons of buddies still in Iowa, and they kept saying this kid, plus she's 5'10" and about 180 pounds. So she's a big kid, very physical, just an athlete. And they kept telling you, when she goes with softball only, her potential is going to go through the roof. Well, it also takes a little bit of time, the speed of the game and the speed of the pitchers, and you just don't see Division I pitching every single day in the state of Iowa. You don't see it in Alabama. I mean, you're going to see a good pitcher every now and then, but you're not going to see it every game. So this year, I think she hit 13 home runs. She led the team in RBIs. She ended up hitting a 3-hole, the World Series, and she's going to be a senior next year. And I can't wait to see what she can do because her mental game improved. Her physical game was much better. She was the strongest kid in the weight room. I think she squatted 330. She's just one of those really, really good kids, a great leader. The kids respect her. Everybody likes her. And, when a kid has success like that, you're really happy for her because she's definitely earned it. She didn't deserve it. She earned it. We have 2 pitchers coming back that I think I'm really excited about both of them. Leslie Jury, who will be a senior, and Sydney Littlejohn, who, if you watch the final game in the World Series, she pitched like 5 innings and only gave up 1 run, and it was unearned. I'm really excited about her. 2 freshmen that got to play a lot was Peyton Grantham and Marissa Runyon, both infielders. Both had huge home runs for us. Best thing about a freshman is they have no idea what's going on, how big the situation is. They just went out there and played like they were a little leaguer. And I think the team really appreciated both what they brought to the table, and I think they're going to do better next year just because of the experience in the World Series. Half the team had never played in a World Series, so those 9 that didn't get to play, and one was a senior, she had transferred, but 8 of them are coming back, and I think they're just going to be that much more motivated this summer to work hard and get back to Oklahoma City.
And we discussed earlier in the interview about what tactics you used to bring Jacqueline Trina to Tuscaloosa from Florida, but softball, just like many other college sports, there's usually a couple of states or just a region in general that they just produce softball players like there's no tomorrow. When you recruit players from, say, Texas, California, Florida, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, wherever, among other softball-hungry states, what are some of the key points you make in trying to sway them to come to the University of Alabama as opposed to them staying in their home state?
Well, I think, you make some good points. There are hotbeds, and historically it's been California, Texas, and then as of 8 to 7 years, it's been Florida because the weather has been great and they've really improved. And then another, really up and coming, I think, that a lot of coaches are recognizing is Georgia. There's some really good coaches, very good athletes. There's always been great high school baseball in Georgia. Look at the Braves, look at all the colleges there that have either won or played in the World Series. They're basically doing it with Georgia kids. So I think the softball has come around quickly. When a kid comes to campus, I think they just get this feeling. And, most kids are told that you're going to get a feeling in your stomach that this is the place for me. And we really do try to involve the whole person, not just the athlete part, but the whole person. And we really try to develop them as young ladies. They're going to leave a much better athlete, that's for sure, but they're also going to leave a better person. And I don't think a lot of schools really recognize that. When we ask high school coaches and summer ball coaches, the first question we say, is she a good teammate? We don't ask if she can throw or hit. We want to know if she's a great teammate. Because these are kids that we're going to be around for 4 years of our lives, more than our families. the kids are going to be around each other more than their families. So it needs to be a really good situation. It needs to be a good fit. And we passed up some really, really good players that would not have fit our family, and it turned out for the best. I'll take a really good softball player who's just the greatest person in the world over a really, really a great athlete who's not a good person. Because in the end, the good kid who's a really good leader and a good teammate, she's going to mean more to the program than the kid that doesn't have a very good attitude. So I think when kids see that, it's refreshing. Everybody's in it that's here right now. They're in it for the right reason. They're in it together. And there's a lot of high school and summer ball teams that, there may be a couple kids that are not, and they really stick out. So we try to avoid that kid and get the kid that buys into the team concept. And it's tough. I mean, it's very difficult because you've got moms and dads and coaches that say you're the best thing ever. And then when you get here, it's like, it's not all about you anymore. It's about the team. So it's a tough transition for some kids, but, they usually get it. And, we're usually not the most talented team. The team that wins is the team that plays together the best. And that fortunately for us, we've won 4 out of the last 5 SECs. We've been to the most World Series in the SEC with 9. We've been to all 10 super regionals, the only school in the country. And this past year, we had 4 academic All-Americans. There was 5 at the World Series, and 4 wore crimson and white, which was pretty cool.
And with your championship in 2012 and Florida's championship this season, the SEC has really opened the eyes of softball fans around the country. And Auburn, they're trying to make their presence felt in the SEC with the hiring of Coach Clint Myers from Arizona State. So what are your thoughts on the new term with the rivalry with Auburn, with the hiring of Coach Myers, and just your thoughts on the SEC as a softball conference?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think most athletic directors in the SEC, they don't like to lose. And they're going to give their coaches and their programs the necessary means to compete. I mean, that's across the board. I mean, you can look at 4 or 5 schools right now that have spent $12 million on softball facilities just in the last 4 or 5 years. And that raises the level of recognition, fan recognition, media to that program immediately. When you get like South Carolina got a $10 million stadium a couple years ago. It's one of the nicest in the country. There's another part of that. You know what that means, right? You better win. So the days of a softball coach staying at a school for 25 years, I think, are long gone. It's just going to be like football, baseball, basketball. You either produce or you're going to be out of there. And also, comes with the facility is going to be better salaries for softball coaches. And if they're going to pay the salaries that they're paying, they're going to want results. And I think that's one of the byproducts that I think some of the coaches that have gotten into it, I don't think they were ready for that. A guy like Clint has been in it for years and years. He knows that. And they definitely were improved this year. It's going to be a really good rivalry. Just the level of play across the SEC. We won it. Florida finished 5th. Kentucky finished 7th. All 3 of us were in the World Series. We had 11 teams again get invited to regionals, the most of any conference in the country. And I think after the World Series was over, I think there's a lot of people they're like, because they knew it was coming, but they just didn't know when. And, obviously when you do it the first time, the second time is a little bit easier. The third time gets a little bit easier, and it's going to raise the level of play across the SEC because, I congratulated Coach Walton from Florida, but I also said thanks because he just made us work that much harder. And I think that goes across the board. It's any sport in the SEC that the coaches are competitive. And I really think that you could see an SEC decade of dominance here pretty quick.
And we'll now talk about your career. And you've coached at Alabama since 1999, where you were the head coach since 1999. And along the way, you've built an impressive resume, including the 2012 Women's College World Series title, 66 wins in 2000, just to name a few of your accomplishments. And you have quite a bit. How did you get into coaching softball at the collegiate level, and what were some of the stops along the road to Tuscaloosa?
I grew up in a farming community in northeast Iowa, and every family reunion we'd go to my grandmother's farm, and it had a huge front lawn. And after everybody was done eating, there was you had tons of cousins, and they were all young, and so we'd go out to the front lawn and play softball. And one of the uncles would pitch, and it would just became this every family reunion. That's what we did. Well, a couple of my cousins ended up being pitchers, so I'd go watch them play. And then when I went to college at Northern Iowa, I worked for Sports Information. in the media relations department, and one of my sports was softball. So I got to travel, do the stats, do the media guide, everything that involved sports information. When I went to grad school at Louisiana Lafayette, at the time it was called University of Southwestern Louisiana, and Raging Cajuns, who had a really good year in baseball and softball this year. But anyway, the second year I went back to grad school, the assistant softball coach had quit, and the head coach took me out to eat pizza, and I didn't know what she was going to do, but at the end of the meal, she said, "Hey, do you want to try something else?" And I said, "What do you mean?" Because I was already doing sports information there, going to class, writing my thesis, and she said, "I need an assistant coach." And I had coached high school softball or baseball in Iowa, and she knew that, and it was $6,000 part-time, no benefits. And I said, "Sure, what the hell? I'll try it." I think we were 53-5 that year. We just missed the World Series. Third year, we did go to the World Series for the first time in their program's history. And I spent 5 years there. And then I got the head job at Northwest Missouri, which is a Division II school in Maryville, Missouri, closer to home. It was a one-year deal because it was an interim job. The head coach quit suddenly over Christmas break, and they needed somebody quick. And then after that, I applied to every school in the SEC, and Alabama was the only one that replied to me, and I got the assistant coach job, and I was there for 2 years. And the first head coach, he went back to Texas. He was from Texas. Bob Backraft was the AD at the time, and he called me over and said, "Here's your salary. Here's the job. Do you want it? Take it or leave it." And so I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then that year was 1999, and we went to the NCAAs, and the next year we went to the World Series. And you know how they say, the rest is history.
Final question before we let you go. Now that it is the off-season, what is a typical off-season like for the coaches and staff of the Alabama Crimson Tide softball program?
Well, we got home Wednesday about 1 o'clock from the World Series, and Friday I left at about 1 o'clock to go to Houston. I went recruiting Saturday, Sunday. 2 of my players are still playing professional softball, and I'd never seen them play, so I flew from Houston to Cleveland and went to Akron, Ohio on Monday night. I actually threw out the first pitch for the Akron Racers. Charlotte Morgan and Kelly Montalvo played for them, so I got to see both of them that night. Flew back to Birmingham Tuesday morning, and now we're getting ready for camp. It starts Sunday afternoon. We have a week-long 2 sessions of camp. And then I go to Portland, Oregon, Chattanooga, Boulder, Colorado, California, and somewhere else recruiting. I don't remember the other one, but I was looking at my calendar, and there's not many open days. So it's a busy summer for us, and, a lot of people are like, "Hope you get some time off." And I said, well, we took Thursday off when we got back, but it just, it never stops because, once you stop, or if you think you know it all, you're going to get run over by the competition. So that's not what we wanted to happen, and it's just been too good of a run here. The people have been terrific, and you probably know that we've led the nation in attendance the last 10 years in a row, so that's another positive about us is the fans are always involved, and it's just a great place to coach and to play college softball because it's, we're on the front page of the newspaper every single day. It's a great place to play.
All right, Coach Patrick Murphy, head coach of the 2012 Women's College World Series champion Alabama Crimson Tide softball program, joining us today on Sports Overdrive. And Coach Murphy, want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to speak with us. It was great getting to talk to you and learn more about the softball program. We wish you the best of luck next season as you make another run for a World Series title.
Well, come see us, and thanks for everybody for listening, and thanks for having me on. Roll Tide.
And that was head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide softball team, Coach Patrick Murphy, joining Sports Overdrive this afternoon. We discussed a lot of things, including their Women's College World Series run that took place just last week. Also talked about Jacqueline Trena, Haley McClaney, recruiting, and just a lot of Roll Tide things that have to do with the Alabama softball program. We're making the final turn. Our last break is coming up next. This is Sports Overdrive.